brewery leftovers could fuel the next era of meat production, researchers have developed a new method that uses leftover yeast from beer brewing to help produce cultivated meat. Instead of discarding the nutrient-rich brewing waste, the team has found a way to turn it into a key building block for lab-grown meat. The study was recently published in Frontiers in Nutrition by researchers at the University College London. The process starts with brewers' yeast left over from beer production. This yeast feeds bacteria that produces bacterial cellulose, which is a natural fibrous material forming the scaffold. Lab-grown meat cells attach to this scaffold, mimicking the texture and structure of real muscle tissue. Unlike synthetic alternatives, this cellulose is fully edible, breaking down during digestion without leaving residues.
This is feedstock food for our bacteria that make the bacterial cellulose that we use as a scaffold to put animal cells on to make lab-grown meat. The bacteria can grow on lots of different things, but the advantage of feeding them with this waste product is that we can turn waste that would otherwise be thrown away into something useful.
For context, conventional lab meat often uses plastic or collagen scaffolds, which are costly or non-edible. This yeast-based version cuts waste and costs. This beer yeast is cheap and plentiful, with UK breweries generating thousands of tons yearly.
I mean, it's very modern. It's very forward thinking, isn't it? It's it's kind of solving, is going to help solve problems with, that we haven't got the land for the cattle. We haven't got, all sorts of problems that it will help solve. And it's really fascinating being on the kind of the beginning of this kind of journey.
The global adoption for the cultivated meat is slow but growing worldwide. The market remains limited. Singapore became the first country to approve the sale of cultivated meat in December 2020. In the United States, regulators cleared the first sales in June 2023.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has given Anthropic's CEO a deadline to provide full access to the company's AI model, Claude. The demand follows the Defense Department's use of Claude in the raid in Venezuela that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. Anthropic has asked the Pentagon to agree to guardrails, limits that would prevent the AI from being used for mass surveillance of Americans. Defense officials say spying on Americans is illegal. In a meeting Tuesday, Hegseth told Anthropic's CEO he will not allow a private company to dictate how the Pentagon makes operational decisions or block specific uses. Axios reports Hegseth is considering invoking the Defense Production Act to force access, giving the company until Friday to agree voluntarily.
Colombia is preparing for elections next month, but one candidate is getting a lot of attention. Her name is Gaetana. She's an environmentalist and an animal rights advocate. But here's the catch. Gaetana is not human. She is, in fact, an AI-generated avatar. She appears on screen as a blue-skinned woman and is running for a seat in Colombia's Congress. Her pitch is simple. Politicians should not make decisions alone. Instead, citizens should vote on every bill. And online, thousands are already following her AI campaign.
Detente un segundo.
Imagine a member of Congress who doesn't decide alone, who sends you every bill to your phone before voting on it. You and the rest of the community analyze, debate, and decide.
That is a political candidate making her pitch in Colombia. But she is not a human. She is artificial intelligence. Meet Gaetana, an AI-generated avatar contesting a seat in Colombia's legislative elections next month. On screen, she appears as a blue-skinned woman in traditional indigenous dress. Gaetana describes herself as an environmentalist and an animal rights advocate. And her campaign is built on one idea: that politicians should stop deciding alone. Instead, every bill would be sent to the public. Citizens would debate it and cast their verdict. That would then determine how the seat votes in Colombia's Congress. More than 10,000 online users already interact with her platform. They follow her campaign and share their opinions on policy. Gaetana was created by a mechatronics engineer from the Xenu community. He built her as a direct challenge to Colombia's political establishment. She is now seeking one of the seats reserved for the indigenous communities. These are seats that exist to guarantee representation for groups historically marginalized in Colombian politics.
If the current parties don't represent you, there's room here for all of us, even if we're not indigenous. With technology and innovation, this movement can defeat at the ballot box the mafias that use the indigenous name to cling to power.
That message is finding an audience in a country exhausted by its political crisis. Colombia's elections have been marked by violence. A presidential candidate has been assassinated. Rebels have detonated pipe bombs in a major city. And officials say parts of the country are too dangerous for candidates to campaign in. Gaetana has no such vulnerability. She exists only online. But there is a legal problem. Colombian law does not permit non-human candidates to stand for election. So a human candidate is formally registered on the ballot. Gaetana serves as the campaign's public face. Voters will see the name AI listed under the indigenous constituency.
Every decision is recorded forever. If you want to make history, on Election Day, ask for the Senate and Indigenous Chamber ballots and vote for AI. Now tell me something. Would you trust more in someone who makes promises and betrays them, or in an artificial intelligence that decides with you?
That is not a rhetorical question. In Colombia, people are actually answering it. And the country is not alone in this experiment. In Albania, an avatar known as Diela has been described as an AI minister. She is presented as a public anti-corruption figure. But Gaetana goes further than that. She is running against politicians. She is on the ballot and is asking Colombians for their votes.
Yeah, sorry. We're here shooting CoreWeave's first brand campaign.
Ready for Anything, Ready for AI is all about the moment that we're in, and it's bold and it's human.
You can't spell anything without AI.
It's basically a manifesto for why CoreWeave exists and really help articulate why we do what we do.
It tells the story about what are all the innovations that are happening in the market across industries, across departments, in a way that's exciting and how it's having real impact.
Answers to any and all things anybody's asking.
We really want to define the possibilities of AI, trying to bring out the humanity in this technology.
As we think about use cases across industries,
Aerospace, automotive and academia, navigation, neuroscience, trading, transportation, healthcare, genomics, game-based learning.
we are truly built for this moment. And when they look for a partner to work with, that partner is us.
We were built to power and enable pioneers and their ideas, and we're ready for anything.
After customers see what we're doing with Ready for Anything, it is all about knowing that we are purpose-built for AI.
Who's ready for anything?
As Chance would say, fire.
Fire. That was fire.
That's a wrap on Chat!
Now to the latest on that violence in Mexico after the killing of one of the most powerful cartel bosses. Today, tensions are easing.
ABC 7 Eyewitness News producer Juan Carlos Guerrero was in Puerto Vallarta when the violence hit and has this update.
Life is returning to normal in Puerto Vallarta. In the popular Zona Romantica, the romantic zone, tourists are out walking around, hanging out at the beach, and eating at the beachside restaurants. A big contrast from Sunday and Monday when they were ordered to shelter in their hotels because of the violence following the killing of one of Mexico's most powerful cartel bosses. Overall, tourists say they feel safe.
We don't feel scared, but we're also not staying out late at night. We're not walking far from this place. We're sticking close to it.
Will you keep coming back?
Absolutely.
This morning, a military helicopter flew overhead, and that provided some reassurance for tourists and residents.
Like the military helicopter was going over and sort of creating a sense of security that things are safe, but I have no fear at all.
Despite the military flyover, there is not much of a visible presence of the military on the streets. A taxi driver I talked to was afraid this was the calm before more violence as the cartels fight for power. Still, the city is slowly cleaning up. 3 burnt buses we saw yesterday in the Malecón have been removed, and workers were cutting down damaged palm branches. No tourists or Puerto Vallarta residents were killed in Sunday's violence, but several businesses were torched, almost all of them OXXO convenience stores.
One of the surreal things you still see are burnt vehicles like this gasoline tanker that's sitting in the middle of a gas station while people are pumping gas all around it.
Jim Ricewick and his wife were out taking photos of the burnt vehicles after hunkering down Sunday and Monday.
Do you feel safe now?
Yes, we feel very safe. I think it's over, and it's a great town, and I've been coming here 20 years, and I love it here, and I don't want my visiting here to end because of this, and I don't think it will.
Meanwhile, flights are leaving with more frequency from Puerto Vallarta, but many people who had their flights canceled could not get a new flight until next weekend. In Puerto Vallarta, Juan Carlos Guerrero, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
All right, guys, we got a situation that has unfolded in the waters off of Cuba, where 4 U.S. citizens have been killed. They were said to be aboard a Florida-registered speedboat, and the Coast Guard saying that they acted in defense in this. This took place this morning. They say that this violating speedboat detected in Cuban territorial waters, that it was registered in Florida with the number FL7726SH. It approached up to 1 nautical mile northeast of El Pino Channel. This is when a surface unit of the Border Guard troops in the Ministry of Interior that had 5 people on board approached the vessel to try to get identification. The crew of the violating speedboat opened fire on the Cuban personnel, resulting in the injury of the commander of that vessel. And as a consequence of that confrontation, there was return fire, and the Cubans shot the Americans, 4 of them killed, 6 injured in this. The injured were evacuated and received medical assistance. We have no idea who those people are at the moment. They go on to say that in the face of all the challenges between Trump and Cuba and everything, things being so tense, it doesn't help, but that they have a right to defend their waters, especially if they're being shot upon. So we have no names of victims or injured. We just know that the boat was registered in America. We don't even know if it was Americans that were actually on it yet, although they're saying they were, saying they're Americans without giving their names up. So it's a waiting game here to see what goes on. As I get more information, I'll update. Follow me on X.
اما تعیین کننده نمادی از فناوری‌های نوین در رزم. کار را به شاهد 136 سپردند. در لایه‌های مختلف از پیش تعیین شده عملیات دفاع مستحکم از سواحل کشور و البته جزایر ایرانی هم تمرین شد. این آتشبار با گلوله‌های مجاورتی دارند. این آتش سنگین به مواضع دشمن. یگانهای موشکی نیروی زمینی سپاه با سامانه‌های جدید و البته متنوع اهداف خود در فواصل مختلف را هدف گرفتند. حالا سامانه موشک و شلیک به هدف بعدی با این سامانه در نقطه دیگر.
We have a lot of people around the world anticipating a strike on Iran here, coming from the United States or Israel here at any time. And now we're hearing that huge numbers of U.S. allied forces are being told to exit the Erbil base in Iraq I've talked about this before, just within the past couple months, that when you see this base largely get hollowed out, with just a few troops left behind, that's a sign they're about to attack. It is every single time. We also have the Germans urging all citizens to get out immediately. Germany has pulled all their troops out of the area, along with other NATO allies. They've pulled anybody on the ground, French soldiers, Italian soldiers, they've all left. Norwegian, Swedish forces, they've all left. Just leaving behind the Americans pretty much to man the place. The German military sources saying that the army reduced its forces in response to the escalating regional conflict, and that any citizens that are there should get out immediately. You don't want to be stuck. There's not a guarantee they can come in a rescue operation and retrieve you if you're there. So that's what they're warning everybody largely here. And all the ducks seem to be in a row here for an attack, even though Israel pumped the brakes on the U.S. last time and had them stop right when they were getting ready to strike. This time, they're saying that if you're going to attack, you've got like a week's worth of attack power, and then that's it. If the enemy knows this, then what good does that do anything? They've got a large set of assets in the area, but it's said that when it comes to the bombs themselves, they've sent so many to Ukraine that they're in short supply. Something sounds like a setup. And with all these battleships, ones that are old and the toilets blowing up on them out there and everything else, it would seem like it would be advantageous to the West to have one of their ships sank out there in the midst of all this. It would give them the reason of all reasons to start launching bombs and to go at them hard. I really feel they're looking for an excuse to be able to go in for a decapitation strike on Khomeini, which Khomeini has also put things into motion to where a successor will replace him if they do get him. So people being told to get out, the place surrounded by military at this point, the State of the Union over. Trump says he's sick of talking. And at this point, when people are told to leave and get out, well, the next thing is bombs flying.
A NATO country, a US warship, and protesters in the streets. This is not happening in Tehran, by the way, not in Washington, but in Greece. Yes, a NATO member. And you know what the trigger point is here? Well, the arrival of the massive American aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, one of the most powerful warships in the world. It docked at Souda Bay, and that's when the shouting began. In the coastal city of Chania, hundreds of demonstrators, they took onto the streets. Banners raised, voices loud, anger quite visible. Some even chanted that NATO killers go home. Others demanded something even bigger, the closure of Souda Bay base. Now let's pause here. Souda Bay is not just any port. It is one of NATO's most strategic facilities in the Eastern Mediterranean, a key hub for naval operations, a refueling and logistics point, and now temporarily hosting America's most advanced carriers. Well, the protest was aimed at more than just a ship. It was aimed at policy, at military deployment, at what demonstrators see as Greece aligning too closely with the US operations. They accuse their own government of backing American military actions at a time of rising tensions with Iran. And the timing, that matters. The US has been increasing its military presence in the region. More ships, more aircraft, more readiness. And at the very same time, Iran has been showcasing its own defensive posture. That means missile drills, military statements, strategic messaging. The Mediterranean is practically watching. For protesters in Chania, this is not an abstract geopolitics. They fear escalation. They fear that their country could become entangled in a larger confrontation. They fear that hosting major military assets makes them a target. In the meantime, the NATO alliance remains united on paper, but scenes like this, it reveals something deeper. Public opinion does not always match the strategic decision. Governments calculate the alliance. Citizens calculate the risk. The image is shrinking. On one side, you have a towering US carrier as anchor. On the other side, you have crowds waving banners under the Mediterranean sun. Here we have, ladies and gentlemen, two realities, one harbor. The question now is this just a protest or a sign of growing discomfort within parts of Europe about escalating tensions with Iran? Because when demonstrations erupt in NATO nation, as US military power docks at its shore, it sends a message not to Washington or Tehran, but to the entire alliance.
Russia has unleashed what it calls a new battlefield dragon, and Ukraine is feeling the heat. As the war enters its fourth year, Moscow is not just holding ground, it is expanding. On the other hand, Russia says that 7 people have been killed in Ukrainian drone strikes. We track the weapon, the gains, and the diplomacy racing to catch up.
Russia deploys a terrifying new weapon in Ukraine, shattering defenses with unprecedented force. Front lines buckle as Moscow's gains increase. Explosions rip through the night. Ukrainian soldiers hunker in fortified trenches. Artillery pounds relentlessly. Drones circle overhead, hunting targets. The air thickens with tension. Something massive looms on the horizon. Russia unleashes the TOS-3 Dragon. This thermobaric rocket system, mounted on a T-80 chassis, fires from 25 kilometers away. Fuel-air explosives detonate in sequence. A massive fireball erupts at 3,000 degrees Celsius. The blast wave sucks oxygen from the air, collapsing lungs and pulverizing concrete bunkers. No shelter survives. Enemy positions vaporize in seconds. The fourth year of war marks a Russian rampage. Territorial gains here surpass the combined advances of the previous 2 years. Donetsk and Luhansk see relentless pushes. On the other hand, the Ukrainian forces continue to launch deep strikes inside Russian territory. A deadly drone strike targeted a fertilizer plant in Russia's western Smolensk region. As the fighting intensifies, Ukrainian diplomat will be meeting US envoy Steve Witkoff in Geneva on Thursday. This comes ahead of fresh trilateral talks with Russia expected in early March.
Iran responded on Wednesday to President Trump's coercive tactics in light of the impending nuclear negotiations in Geneva. Tehran asserts that discussions might result in a deal through honorable diplomacy. The comments comes just before Thursday's meetings as the US prepares its largest military buildup in the Middle East in decades. If you choose the path of diplomacy, where Iran's dignity and mutual interests are respected, we will stay at the table as we are right now. Tomorrow we have the third round of talks, and we have been present in the previous ones as well. We will continue to take part in the upcoming negotiations. But if your decision is to repeat the last experience through deception, lies, flawed analysis, and false information, and to strike at the negotiating table in the middle of talks like before, then without doubt you will feel the forceful punch of the Iranian nation and our defense forces, and you will certainly regret that choice. In case the negotiations fail, Trump has repeatedly warned of possible attack on Iran, a situation that countries in the Middle East are concerned could lead to a new regional war as the remnants of the years-long Israel-Hamas war continues to smolder.
Iran just activated its missile cities. That's right, welcome to Times XP, and the question the world is asking is Iran unlocking its underground arsenal? Is this a warning or perhaps a message meant for Washington, Tel Aviv and beyond? Because what lies beneath Iran's mountain, it is not a myth. It is steel, it is concrete, it is firepower. Can you picture this for a moment? A silent mountain in Iran. Dry desert winds above. Nothing really unusual on the surface, but below, massive tunnel networks. In fact, there are hidden chambers, missiles lined up in the row. Welcome to Iran's so-called missile cities, built and controlled by the powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, nickname the IRGC. Now let me tell you here, it is not one bunker, not two facilities, but an underground maze. Now, why build cities underground? Because satellites can see above ground. Jets can bomb the visible targets, but hundreds of meters under rock, that's a different power game. Iran says that these facilities are designed for just one thing: second strike power, meaning that if Iran is first hit, its missiles can fly back, and that too really fast, coordinated and overwhelming. Iranian state media recently released dramatic footage, missiles rolling out from deep tunnels, launch platforms rising from underground shafts, command centers lit by dim red light. And the names on those missiles? Imad, Sajil, Qadr and Hajj Qasem. Precision guided, long range, built to reach far beyond Iran's border. Well, these underground bases, they don't just store missiles. They fuel them, they move them, prepare them, and that too all inside a mountain. That means less exposure, less warning, and less time for the enemy to react. So, what is the strategy here? Very simple: deterrence. Iran's message is simple: you can strike us, but you cannot silence us. Even if air bases are hit, even if surface launchers are destroyed, well, something remains underneath, beneath the earth, waiting. And here's where it gets serious. Military doctrine experts call this survivability. If your weapons survive the first attack, you maintain the leverage. You keep your opponent guessing because they can never be sure how much is hidden or how quickly it can be launched. Back to square one, are these missile cities newly activated? Iran has not officially said so, but the timing of the footage release, that matters. Tensions are high in the region, warships are moving, alliances are tightening, and suddenly Iran is showcasing its underground arsenal. That is not coincidence, that is signaling. The mountains of Iran look quiet tonight, but beneath them, missiles sit on mobile launchers, fuel systems are ready, command units are alert. A silent force, a buried deterrence, and a reminder to rivals that if conflict comes, Iran believes it can still answer back, and that too from the shadows. Iranian missiles could hit the US cities. That was the warning, blunt and unfiltered. And it came straight from the podium inside the chamber of the United States Congress. President Donald Trump delivered a message that instantly grabbed the global attention. Well, this was not any routine diplomacy, it was a signal. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump said that he wants peace. He said America prefers negotiation over war. He said deals are better than destruction, and then he pivoted. He warned that Iranian missiles have the range to threaten the American cities. Can you think about that for a moment? Not bases in the Middle East, not ships at the sea, cities. That is the powerful line to draw. And yes, at the very same time, he made one position crystal clear, that the United States will never allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. No ambiguity, no hesitation here. And that red line remains. Behind the scenes, negotiations are reportedly ongoing, back-channel talks, diplomatic exchanges, quiet conversations. But Trump, he added a dramatic phrase. He claimed that Iran has not yet said the magic words needed for the deal. And wait, what are those words? A clear commitment, a firm guarantee, a willingness to step back. According to him, that hasn't happened. And here is why this matters right now. While words are being exchanged, hardware is moving. Warships are being repositioned. The US has been strengthening its naval presence in the Middle East. Aircraft carrier, destroyers, in fact, support vessels. Now that build-up, it sends its own message. So in the end, what are we seeing here? On one side, there is talk of diplomacy. On the other side, visible military strength. It's pressure, rather strategic pressure. And wait, what about Tehran? Well, Iran's leadership, including their supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, is watching closely. Every word from Washington, it matters. Every ship moment, it matters. And every statement shift the balance here. This is high-stakes signaling. Trump is saying that we want peace, but we are prepared. He is saying negotiate seriously or face the consequences here. Well, the question now is simple. Will diplomacy win, or will rising tensions push both the sides closer to confrontation? Well, for now, the missiles remain in silos. The ships remain at the sea and the talks remain uncertain. But the message has been sent and the world is surely listening.